Hey everyone, and welcome back to Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This video is Lesson 69, and we're going to cover pages 78 and 79 in our book, a new style of bass, and the song Sole Mio. And if you look at the bottom of page 79, we're also going to talk about arpeggiated chords or rolled chords. So we'll get to that in a little bit as well. But let's start at the top of 78 where it says a new style of bass. So this is going to be our left hand. And we are in the key of F today. So this little example that you see where it says moderately slow, this is going to put our left hand in basically the F position, right below middle C. So that's 5 on F, 4 on G, 3 on A. And you're going to want to have your 2 on B flat because in the key of F, there's always a B flat. And you can see at the beginning of the line there next to the bass clef that there is a B flat sign. So all B's are going to be flat in the piece Sole Mio as well because that's also in the key of F major. So that's 5 on F, 4 on G, 3 on A, 2 on B flat, and the thumb on C. So the notes that we're dealing with in the first two measures are just F, A, and C. So this is going to be your outline, the F chord, F, A, and C. So that's 5 on F, 3 on A, and your thumb on C. But we're going to implement a little bit of rhythm here in measure 1, as well as breaking up the chord. And they've actually been very kind to put the count there as well. So we've got 4 beats per measure. We're dealing with eighth notes, which get half a beat. So whenever we do that, we're going to be using the and system. So you can see underneath the first measure where it says count, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So on beat 1, you've got this F, which is a dotted quarter note. That's 1.5 beats. And then you're going to go to the A and C together on the and of beat 2, and that's just an eighth note. So that's going to be quick. And then you're going to stay on the A and C and play it again on beats 3 and 4. So those are quarter notes, so they're going to be a little bit longer. And then when you get to measure 2, it's the entire chord. And then you're off on beats 2, 3, and 4. So that entire little pattern there is going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. So you're off on 2. So you really want to make sure that that eighth note right in there on the and of 2 is really crisp and clean. That's really important to this style of bass. So again, that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now going on to measure 3 and 4, this outlines the C7 chord. Specifically 5 on E, 2 on B flat, and your thumb on C. So when you play that C7 chord, you're outside of the F position just a little bit because your pinky is now coming down to E. But we're still in the key of F. So it's the exact same pattern. It's the exact same rhythm. And even the pattern of breaking up the notes of the chord. So you've got this dotted quarter note on E, and then you've got the eighth note on the and of 2, playing the B flat and the C together with 1 and 2. And then again on beats 3, 4, and then the entire chord in the last measure. So with the count, that's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And if you're having any trouble with the eighth note, making it short and making it crisp, almost give it a little bit of a staccato. Almost. So you really don't be afraid to hop off of it just a little bit. Don't try to make it too smooth. I think that's a little unnecessary, too much work. And in the piece Sole Mio, which we're about to look at, this left hand pattern is going to have pedaling, and that's why I've got my pedal cam activated today. And so the pedal is actually going to help smoothen that out. And in reality, when you're playing the same notes over and over again like that on the piano, it's really impossible to make it smooth without pedal. And even with pedal, there's going to be a little bit of chop. But that's part of this style. It's not meant to really be a smooth style. But if you pop off of that eighth note just a little bit, that will help, I think, make it quick if you find yourself holding it too long. All right, so now, before we get to Sole Mio, let's run the entire example from the beginning. So remember, you're going to start with your F chord, outlining the F chord. So it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then it repeats. You notice that in measure 2, during those 3 beats of rest, I use that rest to readjust my hand into the C7 chord so that I'm there ahead of time. So you don't want to wait till the very last moment. Use the rest to go ahead and move. Likewise, when you're doing the repeat and going back to the F chord, at the end of the C7 chord here, use those rests to move back to your F chord, and then you're right there. One other bit of advice, you might catch yourself holding this root note, the F, while playing the A and the C. You don't want to do that, so you want to make sure you're off. And it just adds more clarity. So there are some styles of bass where this does occur, but that's something a little more advanced, I think, that level 2 or even level 3 may pick up on. But for right now, if you find yourself holding down, make sure that you're off of that 5th finger note, whether it be the F or the E. So once you have that down, you're going to be good to go for Sole Mio, but make sure you do have that pattern down, because that's basically the left hand on Sole Mio. So let's jump down and look at the bass clef first. I'm going to hold off on the pedal now and just look at the notes. Now, the very first measure is actually an incomplete measure. But in the left hand, it's just rest. So your right hand's playing this incomplete measure. And if you notice, there are fermatas over every single beat. So what that means is you're really going to take your time. But again, that's with the right hand. So the left hand doesn't even start till measure 2. But if you look at measure 2 and 3, that is the same exact pattern that we played at the top of the page in measures 1 and 2, outlining the F chord. So it's the exact same thing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. When you go down to the bottom line, measures 1 and 2 and measures 3 and 4 repeat each other. And notice that that is the same as measures 3 and 4 from our example above, the C7 chord. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 at the top of page 79, you're back to the F chord style in the next 2 measures. But notice that it repeats the measure with the dotted quarter note followed by 8th note 2 quarters. So the style is a little different there. It doesn't go in the second measure. It doesn't go to the entire F chord. So it just repeats itself. When you get to measure 3, now measure 3 has something new note-wise. Let's check that out first. If you notice in measure 3, you've got an asterisk, a little red asterisk. Now it says at the bottom of the page, it says note the D flat in the B flat chord. So normally when you're in key of F, you've been playing a B flat chord like this. F with your 5th finger, 2nd finger on B flat and your thumb on D. But here, in addition to this B flat, because of our key signature, that is a D flat written above it, which puts your thumb here. Notice the change of the sound. It's a little darker. It's a little more moody. And it says there at the bottom, this changes the 4 chord, that's a Roman numeral 4, which is our B flat chord. It changes it, which is normally a major chord, to a minor chord. It says, as will be explained later. later could be like level 3 for all I know. Much later, I think. So all you really need to know, really the most important thing there is to avoid the confusion that if you look carefully at the music, that's not a B flat that's written in there. That's a D flat. The B flat is already a given because of our key signature. Remember, all B's are flat. So that note above the B is a D, and we're going to flat that as well. Now, think about where you're coming from. The previous measure, we talked about the F chord. Now, something I've said a lot in these lessons is when you're going to black keys from all white keys, be careful of your placement. Because if I'm playing my F chord down here at the edge of the keyboard, my second finger and thumb have to travel much further to reach that B flat and D flat. But if I'm playing up here in between the keys, I'm much closer to that B flat and D flat. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. So once you're comfortable with the B flat minor chord, which has that D flat, it's still the same pattern that we've been doing since the beginning of this lesson. It's still 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then you go to the chord on the second line, but notice the chord is a whole note, so you're going to hold that one longer than you've been holding the other chords for a full 4 beats. On the second line, when you go to measures 2 and 3, you're back to the F chord. Now in measure 1, the first measure of the third line, you're on the C7 chord here. Now the third line has a long bracket over it. The entire third line is your first ending. So since this is the first time going through the piece, we're going to play this third line and repeat back to the very beginning of the piece. So again, the third line is the C7 chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you're back to the F chord here at the end of the line. And then it repeats. And remember, when you go back to the beginning, the left hand has those rests, so it's only your right hand that's going to play. Don't go anywhere with your left hand. You just finished the F chord, and when you repeat back at the beginning, the first thing the left hand plays is that F chord. So keep your left hand right there. Don't leave the piano during those rests, because then you risk coming back and it's too late and you're not sure where your fingering was. So keep it right there. So you're going to play the whole thing a second time through. On page 79, the second time through, after the second line, you're going to skip the third line. Because remember, the third line means first time only. So you're going to go to the bottom line, and that's second time only, and that's our ending. So here on the bottom line, we're on our C7 chord, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and then we have this arpeggiated chord. Now, the arpeggiated chord in the pink box, it says when a wavy line appears beside a chord, the chord is arpeggiated, broken, or rolled. Now, I actually don't refer to it or hear it often referred to as an arpeggiated chord. I hear it referred to as a roll, because in my experience, arpeggios aren't as fast as this. And an arpeggio, to me, is a series of broken chords across more than one octave on the piano. So I really like to refer to this as a roll, a rolled chord. Going on, it says play the lowest note first, and quickly, and that's the key word, quickly add the next higher notes one at a time until the chord is complete. The first note, and this is very important as well, the first note is played on the beat. Now, one thing they don't mention here is that there's a couple of ways to express this, especially when both hands are involved. In this particular example, that wavy line extends from the chord in the bass clef through the chord, or the two notes, in the treble clef. That is very, very important to recognize. That means that we're actually rolling all 5 notes, because there's 3 here, the C7 chord in the left hand, and there's 2 more here. Now, if it was broken, the wavy line, if it was broken and you only saw a wavy line along the bass notes and then a separate wavy line along the right hand, you would actually roll both hands at the same time. But that's not the example today. So all you need to know for today is that that wavy line starts in the left hand and it'll go through the right hand. So for that very reason, I'm going to hold off. And when we get to the right hand, I'm going to put this entire rolled chord together. So let's finish up the left hand. We'll come back to that and explore that, because that's really going to be affected with by both hands. At the very end, after that, you're back on the F chord in the last two measures, but it's very different actually. It starts out the same, 1 and 2 and 3 and then your thumb jumps down an octave on beat 4 to that C. And the reason for that is so you can easily hit 5 on F at the very end. Okay? So that covers the style of bass in the left hand, which, like I said, that's pretty much the entire piece of music is following that style. So again, if you're not comfortable with the exercise at the top of 78, get very, very comfortable with that before working on this piece. And then I would do exactly what I just did, go right into the left hand and practice your left hand. Now you can go ahead and add pedal. Let's do that. In fact, the pedal in this piece is actually really easy and notated, marked very clear, that wherever that left hand plays is where you pedal, and where it rests, not always, but often, I'll explain as I get into it, where there's some rest, you actually will lift the pedal and hold it up. So that being said, you can see my foot. When I come off the pedal, you can put your foot to the side. I don't like doing that because what if I quickly get back up and I accidentally catch the side of the pedal? I like to rest my foot on the pedal. Now that might mean if you have a very loose pedal, you might have to like almost hold your foot in place rather than rest it. You might rest it and it still pushes down. So it's kind of holding. So that could get tiring, but like a lot of things, in time, you'll get used to it. It'll get more comfortable. But really, to be most efficient on the damper pedal, when you're not playing for short periods of time, you want to just rest your foot. Now, at the very beginning, I'd go ahead and have my foot down, because if you look at the very beginning, we said the left hand wasn't playing, right? The right hand is. Well, the pedal, though, and this is the one spot I see for now where it is pedaling for the right hand, is here at the very beginning. So you've got these chords in the right hand, which we'll go through in a moment. But anyways, that being said, you can go ahead and have your foot down before you play. So you don't need to try to hit the chord and foot at the same time. You don't need to worry about that. Have it down and then hit the chord. That's one less thing to worry about. So have your foot down. But right now we're just going to go through the left hand. So your foot's down and then your left hand. And then you're going to be off on beat 2 in that last measure, both your fingers and your foot. When you play that pattern with the pedal down, you see it sustains the sound a little bit. It smoothens it out a little bit. Now, it's not overly smooth because you're still playing, the same notes, but it helps a little bit. When you get down to the bottom line, now the bottom line we said earlier is the same C7 chord all the way through. So for that reason, even though there's rests, they're not going to have you pedal there. So right here in measure 2, you're going to be off, but you still hold that pedal down. But on the last measure, off on beat 2. So it's interesting they did that, because you could carry the pedal all the way through to the end of the page and then change pedal top of 79. But for whatever reason, we will follow the directions as indicated. So when you get to 79, now here you will hit pedal and foot at the same time. So there's nothing more than just coming all down together, right hand as well. So it's all together, foot and finger. And you'll hold it through the next measure. Now here, change the pedal. This is where we go to our B flat minor chord. So it's a different chord. If you don't pedal, you're going to get this sound. It's really going to be mushy. And a lot of that's just because of a C to a D flat. You get that clash, so it's really important you pedal there. But you're going to hold it into the next measure on the following line because it's the same chord. And when you change chords in the measure 2 on the second line, do the pedal. So the pedal isn't really this up-down motion. It's very clear that it's off and then back on. So that makes it a little bit easier because if it was this up-down continuous motion, that requires a lot more work and a lot more technique, which we may not have talked much about in the past. I can't remember if we have at all, but it's coming up soon. But in the meantime, you're going to clearly come off and then clearly go back down. So that makes it a little bit easier. So that's not really the most common way of pedaling. Like I said, we'll get to that probably in the next few lessons. So that being said, the second line on page 79, the second measure, come down. You're off the pedal, come down the same time you hit this F. Hold it here, and then you're off on beat 2, 3, and 4, and then the third line, you're back down. 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and... Now at the end of the line, the third line where the repeat is, even though you're going back to the beginning, even though the pedal's down the very beginning, you do need to release the pedal at the end of the first ending, the end of the third line there. You see it's marked to release, so make sure you come up. And then you can still come back down and then play the right hand. You don't have to... I haven't talked about the right hand yet. Well, actually, it's gonna... You know what? There's not going to be a break, actually, in terms of rests. So what I would do is I'd lift and then make sure when the right hand and the pedal come back down together. But let's talk about this right hand now. I'm sorry, I forgot the second ending. Jump over to the second ending at the bottom of 79. The pedal there is the first two measures, it's held. And even through this arpeggio, which will come back, I'm sorry, rolled chord, which will come back. Notice it comes up on the rest, the little eighth rest, and then down on the last two measures. And you hold it down. So like I said, the pedal really follows very clearly the left hand for the most part. Now the right hand. So we're in the key of F. Now this is an F chord up here in the right hand, but it's not in root position. Here, this would be root position, F, A, C. You're actually playing it in what's called first inversion. This F is flipping up the octave. Now we need to change our fingering to compensate. So that's 1, 2, and 5. 1 on the A, 2 on the C, 5 on the F. I mentioned earlier these fermatas. So these aren't just quarter notes. These are long quarter notes, and you can really hold them as long as you want. This piece, has a very dramatic intro by doing that. It's forte. So, and then here's where you can really start the tempo. So really hold back on those. Don't be afraid to hold them a good, maybe 3 beats. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But again, I wouldn't really count. Just feel it. But that gives you like a goal. That's probably a good goal right there, around 3 beats length, to give you an idea. Now on beat 1 and 2 are the same. Beat 3, you're going to have A, still the A with your thumb, but you're going to go to 4th finger on E. Second measure, where we pick up the tempo now, that's going to be A and C. And that's a half note. 1 and 2 and. Again, you're going to play it on 3 and 4 and then it's tied into the next measure for another beat, another 1 and. Now, remember your 5 was on F. You're going to have to adjust your fingering here. On beat 2 of the last measure, it's 3 to C and 5 to E. So the 3 and the 5 right now are on D and F. Lift your hand and bring them down. And you're going to hit that again on beat 3. And then the B and D, you're going to use the fingers that should be right there, 2 and 4. Except I meant to play a B flat. Be careful about that. And, I was kind of down here, I think. So it was so easy to hit a B natural. If I was higher up, yeah, that would be a little bit easier. Going on the next line, keep that 2 on B flat. You're going to play it again. And then you're going to add your, excuse me, your thumb's going to play G. Can't talk. All right, G and B flat. And that is a full 4 counts right there, tied to another count. So actually a full 5 counts. Now, here in the second measure, your 3 and 5 is already going to be on C and E. On beats 2 and 3 and then you've got the B flat and D again, 2 and 4. And then the third measure, you're back to G and B flat. Same fingering that you had earlier with it. That's a half note, 1 and 2 and, again, 3 and 4 and 1 and. So you see a pattern here with the ties. Every other measure, there's a tie that goes into beat 1 of the next measure. Now here at the end of this page, your 1 and 2, take those 1 and 2 and jump down, E and G. Now I was really stiff when I did that, but be relaxed because now you're going to do a little finger motion here. 1 and 3 to F and A. Now you're going to get that 2 and 4. You're going to maybe have to squeeze it in a little bit to G and B flat. And then finally at the top of the page, 3 and 5 on A and C. So that's some finger work right there. The reason for that, rather than this, too choppy. So even though this piece isn't overly smooth, it doesn't need to be overly choppy. So this fingering helps make it a little bit smoother, actually. Look at the top notes. And that's what it's all about. The thumb on the bottom notes is fine. The bottom notes don't need to be as smooth. It's your top notes, your melody, that we want to be smooth. And that fingering does it. So keep that in mind, that's what you're doing with that fingering, is trying to keep it smooth. We have a long tie here at the top of the page. That's a total of 7 counts. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So I sped that up just for time. Big jump here at the end of the second measure. The 2 finger needs to go to the C. Right now your 5 is on C. So big jump. Now when you do it, aim up here, because the next measure is a B flat and a D flat. You had the B flat and D flat in your left hand. You're going to have it here in your right hand. So going back to the beginning of the line, I was here, 3 and 5, A and C. Don't jump to 2 on C here. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. Look how far away I am from B flat and D flat. Aim for here. In fact, when you jump, catch the edge of the D flat. You won't go any further. And you'll be doing yourself a favor. You'll be right there. So that's going to make it a lot easier. So that placement's super important. Now the B flat and D flat is tied for 5 counts. Going into the second line, on beat 2, you have just the B flat. And you should have 3 and 5 roughly around D flat and F. That's tricky, though. New notes. That D flat, is a little tricky. But remember all these B flats as well from our key signature. That's a beat and a half. So that's actually 3 and 4. And then you go back to that B flat and D flat. And it's just an 8th note. And then you move in the next measure to A and C. That'll take some practice, just because, again, the D flat is something we're not used to. So at the top of the page, last measure, you've got 1 and 3 on B flat and D flat, 2 black keys, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That 8th note's going to be tricky. Practice this. Just kind of fall off of it. Almost slide. Especially the thumb. Look how that thumb can really slide off the B flat. And then I'd back up on the dotted quarter note on beat 3. 3 and 4 and 1 and then maybe back up a little more to beat 2. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So again, practice this and then back up a little more, a little more. Second measure, second line, so you're here on the A and C. That's 1 and 2, and then again on 3 and 4, and then it's tied 1, and your thumb is on A on beat 2. That 3, pick up the whole hand, that 3 comes to the A. And then you have a G, and then you have an F, and then look at the third line. It shoots right up to C. That's a little unexpected. You would think something's going to go down, but nope. Back up to C. 5 counts there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and then 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So same notes, A, G, F, but different rhythm. This is the first ending, which is the third line, second measure. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and then you're going to have to practice that jump, repeating back to the beginning. So it's kind of cool because your thumb's on this F, right, at the end of the third line. And we said at the very beginning that first chord's an F chord. Now, we said it's not root position. This would be root position. But you're coming from this F, and it's like you're going to... You know what? That whole first ending was basically outlining the F chord. There's a G in there, but otherwise... So it's like you're kind of going from this F root position to F first inversion. That's the connection I would make to enable this, this jump to be a little bit easier. So it's not completely random. You're not just jumping to some random notes. You're coming from an F chord basically to an F chord in first inversion. So I think that could help. And then you're going to play it through the exact same way. When you get to page 79, remember the second time, you're going to skip the third line and go down to the second ending, which is the bottom line. Look at the right hand, well, and the left hand. In both first ending and second ending, the first measures are exactly the same. So either way, you're going to end up with 5 on C for 5 counts. Now this gets interesting in measure 2. And yes, the rolled chord is only part of it. The right hand really has some busy work here. After this tie on beat 2, you're going to play that C again, but you can't do it with 5. You got to use 2. And the whole point of moving to the 2 on the C is to set you up for these notes, B flat and G. That's a little bit of a stretch, but you're going to roll them. Here's what I suggest about the rolls. Let's talk about the rolls now. I'm going to include the left hand, like I said earlier. Make sure you've got the notes outlined. Play it as a block chord first. Perhaps practice part of the left hand going into it as a block chord, even with pedal if you want. So here it is, but I'm just going to play it as a block chord. My right hand, I'm going to do the same thing. And then when you do both hands together, even try it. And you'll see with this movement here and that, and just getting all that, that's a lot of work. So before you even roll it, you want to establish that firm foundation of knowing your notes, getting the fingering, being able to play it all together. So learning piano a lot of times is like in layers. You can only do one layer at a time. Once you've got this chord down, let's talk about rolling it. So what we read earlier was a roll is quick, right? And arpeggios, I said, are not quick. At least, I mean, they can be quick, but also an arpeggio, in my opinion, is repeated across the octaves. This is not. This is just a broken chord played fast. So a roll. And even though it's played pretty quick, this is what it's going to sound like. There's a lot to that. There's a lot to that. That being said, realistically speaking, a lot of you aren't going to get it like that in this lesson, or the next lesson, or the next lesson. I didn't get rolls for a long time. It requires a very, very high level of technique to master a roll. So please don't feel frustrated if it's not coming. That is normal. I played it after just then. I have, I've got years and years of experience. So what I played right there is coming with years of experience. So here's what you want to do. Like I said, first, know your chord, know your notes. Roll it slowly. Remember, it's going to be one note at a time, starting with the lowest note. And you can hold the pedal down for all of this. I would. There's no fancy pedal work, so go ahead and have the pedal down. You can hear the effect that the roll does, which is quite nice with pedal. But take it very slowly, ensuring that every note has its own space. No two notes sound together. Evenness is the key. Don't make one note last longer than the other. Now, when you're done with the roll, the G, there is a fermata, so we're going to hold this for a little while, let it sing out. But as far as those 5 notes, they're all rolled at the same speed. Now, you may want to start firm with your touch. You may want to do it loud. It does get louder there, just to ensure you have the notes and the evenness. What the goal is speed and being light. Now, being light isn't necessarily to make it soft. It's to make it roll faster. If you're stiff, if you're heavy, a roll can't be done fluidly. It won't be as fast. It won't be as even. But that's the challenge right there. Getting the light, even touch takes a lot of time. But that's the goal that you want to at least try your best, try to work on, because it's going to be that way with most rolls. So start speeding up. And as you start speeding up, is it even? You don't want, that's not even. If it's getting uneven, you're going too fast too soon. Is it getting softer? That's the lighter touch. I'm not digging down into the keys. So I'm just going to speed up the process. And that's the other thing. Did you hear that? I made these notes a little bit louder. So there's a lot going on with the rolls, because there's also the evenness of volume. You don't want one note sounding louder than another. Look at our fingers. We have clumsy thumbs. We have pinkies involved. We have very unbalanced fingers naturally that we're trying to keep completely balanced. That is not easy, and it takes time. So also listen. Does one note stick out in volume? Because they have to all be the same volume. And that's probably true of most rolls. I don't know of many rolls where it gets louder. I'm sure it does exist, because that doesn't sound bad, actually. It sounds pretty good. But a lot of times, it's one volume. Whether it's a loud or a soft, it's even. All 5 notes in this case would be even. So yes, I do watch the touch of my thumb. Not too heavy, but I don't want to be too light, because then nothing sounds. So it's going to get very tricky as you go faster and faster. So there's a lot to contend with rolls. So as a review, step 1, get the notes. Make sure you can play the block chord with the right fingering. Do the hands together, because the roll, in this case, it's both hands. Then make sure you play each note individually very clearly. Do it very slow so that it is clear. Don't worry about it being soft yet. Just evenness in both volume and speed. And then start getting faster. Start getting lighter. Listening to make sure there's evenness in both the speed of the notes and evenness in the volume of the notes. So when we put this together, just so you can hear what it sounds like from the second ending, that's kind of the effect you want. And I think I broke the pedal in there. I didn't mean to do that, but so when you practice that arpeggio, I highly recommend doing hands together. You don't have to, but in the end, I mean, that's really what it is the entire arpeggio is one big chord, both hands acting as one. So now finishing up the right hand. After that, the pedal comes up. I would come up, so technically it's marked to come up right when you hit that F. And now that F is quick. So it's just an eighth note. So you're going to have to move to this chord pretty fast. So here's what I recommend. Get comfortable with the chord. It's the F chord that we started the piece with. First inversion, A, C, F. Notice the F is with your fifth finger. The eighth note before it was with your fourth finger. Now you could do that. It's a little bit of a stretch though. It may not be the most comfortable. But then that requires a bit of work too. So I would leave it open. I would say if you have longer fingers, a bigger hand, or you don't mind the stretch, keep the 4. An argument could be made that 4 to 5 makes it smoother, but I don't think so. Not a whole lot. So either way, the most important thing is getting the eighth note though. Making sure that it is an eighth note and not like a quarter note. It's meant to be quick. And then you just hold that chord out through the rest of the piece. And there's a fermata at the end for both hands just to linger there. All right, so that takes care of the right hand. That takes care of the arpeggiated chords. Now putting the hands together, I'm going to do it without pedal first. I think in this case, it's maybe best to leave out the pedal when doing both hands. Trust me, you got plenty to think of when doing both hands. So remember to have the left hand in the F chord position, root position. The right hand, first inversion. So just going through the notes and coordinating, not really worrying about rhythms too much yet, but do be aware of them. So everything comes together here on beat 1 of measure 2. And we said this is where the tempo comes into play. So remember the left hand getting that eighth note for that style of bass. If you've mastered it, great. Now you need to master getting the right hand in there as well, right there on beat 3. There's going to be several measures throughout this piece where that will occur. So the good news is, I think in every case, the right hand plays the same notes. And the left hand plays the same notes. So that's good. In fact, in this case, they're both A's and C's, so that's even better. So going on to the next measure, we said the right hand's still tied. And the only thing that you'll hear on beats 2, 3, and 4 are your right hand. And hopefully at this point you've already figured out the notes and the fingering. If not, you'll have to go back and review the right hand by itself. I'm just working on coordinating both hands together. Now, when you go to the second line, good news is your fingering's there. Should be there for the right hand. Your fifth finger jumps down to E. And then just the right hand. So you can see the pattern here when it comes to whenever the left hand style of bass completes, the right hand has these little solos all by themselves. Now going to the third measure, so that's like that second measure where you have beat 3, both hands. Don't be afraid to really pick up your hands to ensure that that comes in clearly. And then here's our right hand solo. And then both hands at the top. And that's tough. That transition right there between measures 2 and 3. So you're here. Beat 4, your left hand stays, your right hand moves 2 on C. And remember we said make sure you aim up here so you can get that B flat and D flat. Your fifth finger's still on F, so that's good in the left hand, but then it moves to B flat and D flat as well. So in this moment, you're on the same black keys in both hands. That's pretty cool. But then, second line, first measure, you got the left hand chord, still tied on beat 1 in the right hand, and then beat 2, B flat, still holding this left hand, the whole measure. And remember, you're going to go up, and that's a dotted quarter note, and then the eighth note, and then you got to go down. Now, at least it's still an F in the left hand. The B flat minor chord had the F, so you're not going anywhere. And remember, this almost just slides off, so it's not too hard of a move. And then right away, you've got that pattern again where beat 3, both hands. Last measure, pick up both hands, and the third finger in the right hand comes over to A, G, F, and then our fifth fingers are going to work on this first ending. 5 goes down to E in the left hand, 5 on C in the right hand. And then just the right hand, and then F's together in both hands. Keep your left hand there on the repeat. Bring your right hand up to that F first inversion. So now we're back at the beginning. Going on, when you hit the second ending, remember I said it's the same as the first ending in the first measure. So you're coming off of the second line, last measure. Whoops. And now going down to the second ending. You have a retardando here, so that's slowing down. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and there's our rolled chord. So because of the retardando, I would say it doesn't have to be super fast, but you still want it to come across as a rolled chord. You don't want it to come across as 8th notes or 16th notes even, but more like a roll. Okay? It has the fermata, so hang out there for a while. And the good news about that is you can think about where you're going in both hands. And then go. And that's the 4. Now I elected to do the switch. I'm okay with that. But this is quick, and then both hands got to come in. And then remember your left hand jumps. Okay. All right, now let's try it with everything, including the pedal. So, yeah, I'm just going to play it through and talk the pedal through with both hands, actually. So I've got my pedal already down. I got my hand position, and I got these fermatas. And this is forte, loud. Right there, break. So only the right hand, leave your foot on the pedal, and then down. Both hands and foot go down on the bottom line. Hold the pedal down this entire line. Might be tempted to pedal right there. If you do, it's okay. But right here, definitely off the pedal as they suggest, and then everything down at the top. Pedal here. Keep it down. And then pedal here. I almost put too much of a break there. Yeah, I want to do the pedal that I was talking about earlier, which is like a fluid pedal motion of just up, down. But just because we haven't talked about that yet, if you put a little break in there, like I did earlier, like this, that's okay. We're really just following directions, and you know, no reason to make this piece more complicated than it is. It's got its challenges already, so don't worry about that pedal there. If it's a big break, it's okay. So you're still holding the pedal here. Now you're off. Right hand by itself, and then first ending, pedal down, both hands down. Just the right hand. And then again, all down. Now off, and then here down with your chord when you repeat. So that's what I would do on that repeat. So you go through this exact same manner. At the end of the second line, we're right here, last measure, just the right hand. Second ending at the bottom, everything down. Retardando. Little crescendo, getting louder, and then our roll. And then off the pedal for this little 8th note, and then back down. That's tricky. And then we're getting softer and fading out. Yeah, very tricky there, but very cool once executed. So that fermata is your friend. Be thinking and preparing. Off on this F, and then quickly down on everything. So really practice that. You may just have to go a bunch of times so that all lines up. All right, that takes care of all of it. So I'm going to play it, perform at speed, moderately slow, all the way through with the repeat. So we got... All right, so you may have noticed at the end I did a 2 on the C instead of a thumb, but I can make that stretch fine, so if that happens, no problem. Also, I forgot to mention the first ending has the diminuendo. So starting right here, get nice and soft. And that actually is pretty cool, because when you come back to repeat, you can really wake everyone up with that forte again. So that's a nice little contrast. All right, that covers it. So I hope this lesson made a lot of sense. There's a lot of information between the new style of bass and, of course, the rolled chords, which you will definitely see a lot of those coming up on the piano. We also have the pedal in this piece. We have a B flat minor chord and getting used to playing some D flats with the B flat in there. So again, a lot going on. Tough piece, but very helpful. So please don't skip this one because a lot of great information here moving forward. As always, I wish you the best. Any questions, comments, please, I'd love to hear from you and answer anything. And I love the feedback. Anytime I get feedback, I love it. So please keep that coming if you can. And I hope you stick with it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.